Humanity's ancient hidden war fleet smashed through the invading alien armada, ending the desperate war in mere hours as Admiral Vox watched his dreams of galactic conquest crumble. On the bridge of the Evora flagship, Admiral Vox stood before the holographic display of Earth, a world ripe for subjugation. The blue-green orb rotated slowly, a tempting prize for Vox's empire. Vox's scaled hands gripped the edge of the display table, his red eyes narrowing. "Commander Zal, status report," Vox hissed. His subordinate snapped to attention. "Admiral, the invasion fleet is in position. We await your command to strike." Zal's voice was steady, but Vox sensed an undercurrent of anticipation. They had both waited years for this moment. Vox allowed himself a thin smile. The primitive humans would fall easily before the might of the Evora Empire. Their inferior technology and divided nations stood no chance. This would be Vox's greatest triumph, the jewel in his crown of conquests. He opened his mouth to give the order, but alarms blared across the bridge. Vox whirled to face the sensor officer, who frantically scanned his displays. "Admiral, unidentified fleet emerging from behind the planet's moon. Ships of unknown design, heavily armed and shielded. They're moving to intercept us." Vox's blood ran cold. He barked for a visual, and the hologram shifted. Massive warships, dwarfing even the Evora dreadnoughts, arrayed themselves against the invasion fleet. On the lead human vessel, Captain Sean Mitchell leaned forward in his chair, his weathered face set in grim determination. He had waited his entire life for this day, as had the brave men and women under his command. "This is it, people," Mitchell said, his voice cutting through the tense silence of the bridge. "The Evora think they can take our world. They think we're weak, divided, primitive." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But they don't know our secret. They don't know that we've been preparing for this day for centuries, hiding our strength, waiting for the right moment to strike back." Mitchell stood, his presence filling the room. "Today we show them what humanity is truly capable of. Today we fight not just for Earth, but for every world the Evora have ravaged. We are humanity's sword in the dark, her hidden defenders. And today we end this war before it even begins." As the human fleet engaged the shocked Evora, Mitchell allowed himself a grim smile. The invaders had sealed their own fate the moment they set their sights on Earth. They had no idea of the power they had awakened, or the fury of a united humanity. Vox could only watch in disbelief as his dreams of conquest shattered before his eyes, obliterated by the very species he had deemed weak and primitive. He had gravely underestimated humanity, and now his empire would pay the price for his arrogance. The Evora fleet crumpled under the onslaught of the human ships. Sean barked orders, his voice steady and sure. The crew of the Sword of Terror moved as one, executing his commands with precision. On board the Evora flagship, alarms blared. Vox snarled, his teeth bared. "Target their command ship. Concentrate all fire on its bridge. If we kill their leader, we can still win this." The Evora gunners obeyed, pouring a blistering barrage into the Sword's shields. The hull shuddered, but held firm under the assault. Sean's eyes narrowed. "Shields at 80%, the tactical officer reported. Their flagship is bearing down on us." "Then let's show them what we're made of. Divert power to the forward particle cannon." Sean's voice was ice. He gripped the weapon controls, the cool metal reassuring under his hands. The cannon hummed as it charged, a cold blue glow emanating from its barrel. On the view screen, the Evora flagship loomed, its hull pitted and scarred from the battle. Sean's targeting reticle settled on the bridge, a predator's crosshairs on its prey. His finger tightened on the trigger. The particle beam lanced out, a blinding lance of pure energy. It punched through the Evora shields like they were paper, piercing the hull. For a moment, the ship seemed to hang in space, transfixed by the beam. Then it detonated in a blinding fireball. Vox was thrown to the floor as his ship died around him. Warning klaxons screamed, smoke pouring from shattered consoles. He staggered to the escape pods, his crew forgotten in his haste. As the pod ejected, he watched his once proud flagship shatter into 1,000 pieces. Through the pod's viewport, Vox saw his fleet burning, the human ships carving through them with merciless efficiency. Escape pods and debris littered the void, the only remains of his shattered armada. Vox's fists clenched, helpless rage and disbelief warring within him. On the Sword of Terror's bridge, Sean watched the Evora ships fall one by one. His expression was grim, but a flicker of hope burned in his eyes. They could end this here and now, with no more bloodshed. He turned to his comms officer. "Open a channel to the Evora fleet. Let's see if they're ready to talk." Sean's finger hovered over the comms button, ready to open a channel to the battered Evora fleet. But before he could make contact, his comm officer spoke up. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth. It's President Ryder." The view screen flickered, and the stern visage of President John Ryder appeared. The silver-haired leader leaned forward, his eyes hard. "Captain Mitchell, congratulations on your victory. You've done Earth proud today." "Thank you, Mr. President," Sean replied cautiously. "We're about to open communications with the Evora to discuss terms of surrender." Ryder shook his head. "Negative, Captain. The Evora must be made an example of. We can't show any weakness, or other species might get ideas. I want you to destroy their remaining ships and capture any survivors for interrogation." Sean's brow furrowed. "Sir, with all due respect, the Evora are beaten. Further violence is unnecessary. We can end this without more bloodshed." The President's expression hardened. "This isn't a debate, Captain. You have your orders. Carry them out, or I'll find someone who will." A tense silence stretched between them. Sean's jaw tightened. He knew he was duty-bound to obey, but every instinct screamed that this was wrong. After a long moment, he gave a curt nod. "Understood, sir." As Ryder's image vanished, Sean turned to his crew. "You heard the President. Target the remaining Evora ships. Disable them if possible. Destroy them if necessary. And prepare boarding parties to secure any survivors." As the crew hurried to carry out his orders, Sean sank into his chair, a heavy weight settling on his shoulders. Something about this felt off. Why was Ryder so insistent on annihilating the Evora? What was he planning? But there was no time to dwell on it. The battle still raged, and he had a job to do. With a heavy heart, Sean watched as his ships moved in on the crippled Evora fleet. In the drifting wreckage of the Evora flagship, Admiral Vox dragged himself into what was left of the bridge. Emergency lighting flickered, casting eerie shadows. Consoles sparked and smoked, the air thick with the stench of burnt plastic and spilled blood. Vox staggered to the communications array, his eyes narrowing as he saw the human ships closing in. They meant to finish the job, to grind the Evora beneath their heel. But Vox was not beaten yet. He would not let his people fall to these upstarts. His clawed fingers danced over the controls, a desperate plan forming in his mind. The humans thought they had won, but they had no idea what the Evora were truly capable of. A grim smile spread across Vox's face as he began to enact his final gambit. The humans would pay for their arrogance, and the Evora would rise from the ashes of this defeat. This war was far from over. As the human ships unleashed a merciless barrage on the remaining Evora vessels, Sean's comm panel chimed with an incoming message. He frowned, seeing it was encrypted and from an unknown sender. Curiosity piqued. He opened the file. His eyes widened as he read, a chill running down his spine. The message detailed the true history of the ancient human civilization, painting a far darker picture than the noble defenders he had believed in. The fleet's purpose was not protection, but conquest. Earth's leaders had orchestrated this war to seize control of the advanced ships and subjugate the galaxy. Sean leaned back in his chair, mind reeling. He had dedicated his life to this fleet, believed in its mission with every fiber of his being. But it had all been a lie, a ploy by power-hungry schemers. He knew he had to act. This information could not stay hidden, but who could he trust? Ryder's influence ran deep. Sean called up personnel files, scanning the faces of his crew. He needed allies, those who valued truth and justice over blind obedience. With a few taps, he sent coded messages to his chosen few. They had to move carefully, gather evidence, and expose the conspiracy before the fleet could be turned into a tool of oppression. In the shadows of a human ship's cargo bay, Vox slipped from his stealth craft. The small vessel had barely survived his escape, systems fried by the human weapons, but he was nothing if not resourceful. He crept through the bowels of the ship, a wraith in the dim light. His goal was the computer core. Knowledge was power, and he needed to understand his enemy to defeat them. The core was well guarded, but Vox had not risen to command the Evora fleet by chance. Slipping past patrols and hacking security with ease, he soon stood before the mainframe. His claws danced over the interface, breaking through firewalls and encryption. Data flowed across the screen, the secrets of the human fleet laid bare. But one file stood out, a beacon in the dark. As Vox read, his eyes narrowed. The humans had been deceived by their own leaders, manipulated into this war. The same puppeteers pulled the strings of Evora and human alike, all for their own gain. A cold rage built in Vox's chest. His people had been sacrificed, his honor stained, all for the greed of others. This could not stand. In that moment, Vox made a fateful choice. He would find those responsible, human or Evora, and make them pay. And to do that, he would need allies, even among his sworn enemies. The game had changed. The true war had only just begun. Vox's claws tapped a coded message, his movements precise and controlled. He had to reach Sean Mitchell, and secrecy was paramount. The human captain was his only hope for ending this war and exposing the Cabal's machinations. The reply came swiftly, a set of coordinates for a clandestine rendezvous aboard a derelict space station in neutral territory. Vox's heart raced as he slipped away from the Evora fleet, his stealth ship gliding silently through the void. Sean paced the dimly lit corridor of the abandoned station, his hand resting on his sidearm. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but the weight of the truth compelled him forward. The door hissed open, and he tensed as Vox stepped through. For a long moment they stared each other down, a lifetime of enmity hanging between them. Then Vox spoke, his voice low and urgent. "Captain Mitchell, I come to you not as an enemy, but as an ally against a common foe." Sean's eyes narrowed. "And why should I trust you, Admiral? Your people have brought nothing but death and destruction to mine." Vox's gaze never wavered. "Because we have both been deceived. The true enemy lies within your own government, a cabal that seeks to use this war for their own gain. They care nothing for your people or mine, only power." Sean listened as Vox laid out the evidence, a cold knot forming in his gut. It all fit, the missing pieces falling into place. The war, the fleet, the orders from Ryder, all part of a twisted plan. Vox leaned forward. "An alliance, temporary and secret. We combine our knowledge and resources to infiltrate the Cabal's stronghold on Earth and expose their treachery to both our peoples. Only then can we hope to end this conflict and forge a lasting peace." Sean weighed the risks, the lives that hung in the balance, but he knew in his heart that Vox was right. This was bigger than their personal animosity, bigger than the war itself. They worked quickly, assembling a team of their most trusted subordinates. Evora engineers and human hackers, Evora infiltrators and human strategists, a motley crew united by a shared purpose. Sean used his authority to broker a temporary ceasefire with the Evora, buying them precious time. But even as they prepared for their daring mission, a new threat emerged. "Captain Mitchell, you are ordered to return to Earth immediately." Ryder's image glowered from the view screen. "Your actions have raised serious concerns. Report to HQ for debriefing." Sean's jaw tightened. Ryder was onto them and time was running out. He made a split-second decision. "Vox, take your team and proceed to Earth. Begin the infiltration as planned. I'll remain with the fleet to cover your approach and gather more proof of Ryder's treachery." As Vox's ship departed, carrying the fate of 2 species in its hold, Sean turned to face the looming spectre of Earth and the battle that awaited him there. Sean's ship docked at the secret facility outside Washington, D.C., the Cabal's central stronghold. Vox emerged from the airlock first, his eyes narrowed as he surveyed the heavily fortified compound. Turrets tracked their movements, and armed guards patrolled the perimeter. The Cabal spared no expense on security, Vox hissed. Breaching their defenses won't be easy. Sean nodded grimly. We knew this wouldn't be a cakewalk, but we've come too far to turn back now. What's our play? Vox's claws danced over his wrist computer, pulling up schematics of the facility. I can hack their security network, create a blind spot in their surveillance, but it won't last long. We'll need to move fast once we're inside. The team moved out, a mix of human and Evora united by a common purpose. They slipped through the gap in security, darting from shadow to shadow. At the main entrance, Vox's device chirped, and the doors slid open. We're in, Sean whispered. Split up, find anything that can expose the Cabal's plans. We'll rendezvous at the extraction point in 30 minutes. As his team fanned out into the facility, Sean made his way to the Fleet Command Center. He had a role to play, keeping up appearances while gathering intel. The doors hushed open, revealing President Ryder and his inner circle. Captain Mitchell, good of you to join us, Ryder said, his smile not reaching his eyes. We have much to discuss about the future of the fleet. Sean took his seat, his senses on high alert. He listened as Ryder outlined his vision, a future where the fleet would be used not just for defense, but for control. Ryder spoke of the advanced technology, of using it to establish a new world order. Bile rose in Sean's throat, but he maintained his composure. He needed evidence, something concrete to expose Ryder's true intentions. Deep within the facility, Vox and his team delved into the Cabal's secrets. They hacked terminals, downloaded files, piecing together a picture of a conspiracy that went beyond anything they had imagined. But it was the final revelation that shook them to their core. The ancient humans, the creators of the fleet, had not been the masters of their own destiny. They had been pawns, manipulated by an alien race known as the Orcs. Vox's eyes widened as he read the files. The Orcs had orchestrated the conflict, pitting human against Evora, all as part of some twisted experiment. They wanted to test the limits of human resilience, to see how far they could be pushed before breaking. Sean's comm crackled to life, Vox's voice urgent in his ear. Captain, we have a problem. It's bigger than we thought. The Orcs, they're behind everything. We're not just fighting the Cabal, we're fighting an enemy we can't even comprehend. Sean's blood ran cold. The stakes had just been raised to a terrifying new level. They weren't just fighting for the truth anymore, they were fighting for the very survival of their species. In the command center, Ryder droned on, oblivious to the storm that was about to break. Sean's hand tightened on the data drive in his pocket, the evidence he needed to bring it all crashing down. But as he prepared to make his move, alarms blared throughout the facility. On the screens he saw his team fighting, cornered by the Cabal's forces. Sean shot to his feet, his cover blown. Ryder's eyes narrowed, realization dawning. You treacherous bastard, he snarled. You think you can stop what's coming? You have no idea what you're up against. As guards flooded into the room, Sean knew he had only one choice. He had to get to his team, had to get the truth out, no matter the cost. The fate of not just Earth, but the galaxy itself, hung in the balance. And Sean Mitchell, the man who had once been a pawn in a game he didn't understand, now held the key to it all. He charged forward, ready to fight, ready to do whatever it took to end this once and for all. The final battle had begun, and there could be no turning back. Sean's heart raced as he led his team through the Cabal's inner sanctum, a labyrinth of dimly lit corridors and high-security doors. Vox's claws danced over the control panels, his hacking skills making short work of the locks. They moved with practiced efficiency, checking each room for the evidence they needed. It was in the heart of the complex that they found it, a hidden communication room, its walls lined with advanced technology. Sean's eyes locked onto the central console, a holographic display flickering with alien script. Vox, can you access that? Sean asked, his voice tight with tension. Vox nodded, his fingers already flying over the interface. Data streamed across the screen, a cacophony of information, but one transmission stood out, a set of coordinates and a name. Corax. Sean's blood ran cold as he read the message. The Corax, the true puppeteers behind this war, had a secret base on a distant planet. This was it, the key to unraveling the entire conspiracy. He turned to his team, his expression grim. "We have to go now. This may be our only chance to end this once and for all." Sean opened a secure channel to Vox. "Admiral, I need you to gather what's left of your fleet and meet us at these coordinates. We're going to take the fight to the Corax." Vox's reply was immediate. "Understood, Captain. We'll be there." As Sean's ship hurtled through hyperspace, he briefed his crew on the mission. They were the best of the best, hand-picked for their skills and loyalty. But even they were stunned by the revelations about the Corax. "So this whole war, all the death and destruction, it was all just some twisted experiment?" Lieutenant Kira Nakamura asked, her voice shaking with anger. Sean nodded grimly. "It seems that way, but we're going to put an end to it. We're going to show the Corax that they messed with the wrong species." As they dropped out of hyperspace near the Corax base, Sean's heart sank. The planet was a fortress, bristling with defenses. Swarms of alien fighters poured from hidden hangars, their weapons already blazing. "Evasive maneuvers," Sean barked, his hands flying over the controls. The human ships scattered, weaving through the barrage of fire. But they were outgunned and outmatched. The Corax ships were faster, their weapons more powerful. One by one, Sean's ships fell, consumed by the onslaught. Just as all seemed lost, a new wave of ships dropped out of hyperspace. Vox had arrived, the remnants of the Evora fleet at his back. Together, they plunged into the fray, their combined firepower tearing through the Corax defenses. In the chaos of the battle, Sean saw an opening. "Vox, with me, we're going in." Their ships punched through the Corax lines, skimming over the surface of the planet. They dodged and wove through a forest of towering structures, alien architecture unlike anything Sean had ever seen. At the heart of the base, they found their target, a massive command center, its spires reaching towards the sky. Sean and Vox landed their ships in a nearby courtyard, then fought their way inside, their weapons blazing. In the heart of the command center, they found themselves face to face with the Corax leader. The alien was tall and lithe, its skin a mottled gray. It regarded them with cold, calculating eyes. "Humans, Evora. You have caused quite a stir," it said, its voice a sibilant hiss. "But in the end you are merely pawns in a much larger game." Sean stepped forward, his rifle leveled at the alien's chest. "The game ends here, no more manipulation, no more wars." Sean and Vox exchanged a shocked glance. The scope of the Corax's plan was staggering. The alien spread its hands. "Join us and you can rule alongside us. Refuse and your species will be wiped from existence. The choice is yours." Sean's finger tightened on the trigger, his mind racing. The fate of humanity, of the Evora, of the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The Corax leader's words echoed in Sean's mind as he stared down the barrel of his rifle. Join the Corax, or be destroyed. It was an impossible choice, one that would shape the fate of the galaxy. Beside him, Vox growled, his claws flexing. "We will never serve you," the Evora snarled. "We would rather die fighting than live as your slaves." Sean nodded, his resolve hardening. "Vox is right. Humanity will not bow to you or anyone else. We forge our own path, and if that means going through you, then so be it." The Corax leader's eyes narrowed. So be it. In a blur of motion, the alien lunged forward, a crackling energy blade appearing in its hand. Sean and Vox opened fire, their weapons roaring in the confined space. The Corax leader was fast, inhumanly so. It dodged and weaved through the hail of bullets, its blade slicing through the air. Sean felt a searing pain as the blade grazed his arm, the smell of burnt flesh filling his nostrils. Vox leapt into the fray, his own claws extended. He met the Corax leader in a clash of sparks and shrieks of metal on metal. They moved in a deadly dance, striking and parrying with blinding speed. Sean circled the dueling pair, looking for an opening. The Corax leader was a formidable opponent, its skills honed over centuries of conquest, but Sean had something the alien did not, the strength of unity. Humans and Evora, fighting side by side against a common foe. As Vox locked blades with the Corax leader, Sean saw his chance. He charged forward, slamming into the alien with all his might. The Corax leader stumbled, its balance broken for just a moment. It was all Vox needed. With a roar of triumph, he plunged his claws into the alien's chest, piercing its heart. The Corax leader stiffened, its eyes widening in shock and pain. "You have made a grave mistake," it hissed, dark blood bubbling from its lips. "The Corax are legion. Cut one of us down, and 1,000 more will take our place. You have only sealed your doom." With a final shudder, the alien collapsed, its life draining away in a pool of dark blood. Sean and Vox stood over the fallen leader, their chests heaving with exertion. Around them, the sounds of battle still raged, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Sean looked to Vox, a new understanding passing between them. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The Corax would come for them, with all the might of their empire. But they would face that threat as they had faced this one. Together, human and Evora united against the darkness. Sean and Vox exchanged a look of pure disgust at the Corax leader's offer. Betray their own people, their principles, everything they had fought for. Not a chance in hell. With a roar of defiance, Sean lunged at the alien, catching it off guard. Vox was right behind him, his claws slashing at the Corax's guards. The command center erupted into chaos, a whirlwind of flashing blades and crackling energy. Sean grappled with the leader, his hands locking around its throat. The Corax thrashed and hissed, its strength immense, but Sean held on, his grip fueled by rage and determination. Vox, meanwhile, fought his way to the central control system, his claws ripping through metal and flesh alike. With a triumphant snarl, he plunged his fist into the heart of the machine, sending a cascade of sparks flying. Instantly, the Corax's defenses faltered. Outside, the tide of battle turned as the human and Evora ships pressed their advantage, their weapons tearing through the suddenly vulnerable Corax fleet. Sean and Vox fought their way out of the command center, a trail of broken Corax bodies in their wake. They emerged into a scene of utter devastation, the Corax base reduced to smoking ruins by the relentless bombardment. As the dust settled, Sean and Vox regrouped with their forces, taking stock of the situation. They had struck a mighty blow against the Corax, but they knew this was only the beginning. A chilling message crackled over the comms, the voice of the Corax leader dripping with malice. "You think you have won? Foolish primitives. We are the Corax, and we will not rest until the galaxy is ours. Prepare yourselves for the reckoning to come." Sean and Vox looked to each other, the weight of the task ahead settling on their shoulders. They had to unite the races of the galaxy, forge an alliance strong enough to stand against the full might of the Corax Empire. Their first step was to contact their own governments, to share the truth they had uncovered, the evidence of the Cabal's treachery, the manipulation that had led to so much bloodshed. As the revelations spread, chaos erupted on Earth and the Evora homeworld. Shock and outrage boiled over into riots and unrest, the people demanding answers, demanding justice. In the midst of the turmoil, Sean and Vox stood firm, a beacon of hope and determination. They had started this fight, and they would see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The war was far from over, but now for the first time they had a chance. A chance to unite, to fight back, to forge a future free from the shadow of the Corax. It was a chance they would seize with both hands, come what may. In the chaos that followed their exposure of the Cabal's machinations, Sean and Vox found themselves at the center of a political maelstrom. Governments toppled, leaders were arrested, and the people clamored for answers. But the two warriors had no time to rest on their laurels. They knew the Corax threat loomed larger than ever, and they needed allies to face it. They reached out to the leaders of other species, races they had once fought against or viewed with suspicion. In tense meetings and long-distance communications, Sean and Vox laid out the evidence of the Kurax's manipulations and the danger they posed to the entire galaxy. Some were skeptical, viewing the overtures as a trap. Others were too caught up in their own internal struggles to heed the warning. But a few saw the truth in Sean and Vox's words, recognized the peril that faced them all. Slowly, tentatively, an alliance began to form. It was during one of these meetings that they first heard whispers of the artifact. An Etherian diplomat, her crystalline skin glittering in the light, spoke of an ancient legend passed down among her people, a device of immense power, hidden away on a lost world said to hold the key to defeating the Kurax. Sean and Vox exchanged a glance, a flicker of hope kindling in their eyes. It was a slim lead, but it was more than they'd had before. They gathered their most trusted comrades, human and Evora alike, and set out to find this lost world. Zathura was a name spoken only in hushed whispers, a planet that had been dead for eons. As their ship descended through the murky atmosphere, Sean could see why. The surface was a nightmarish hellscape, a twisted landscape of fetid swamps and jagged peaks. They set down in a relatively stable area, the ship's sensors scanning for any sign of the artifact's energy signature. But they would have to do this the hard way, trekking through the treacherous terrain on foot. The first day was a slog through a mire that seemed to suck at their every step. Noxious fumes choked the air, and strange spongy plants writhed beneath their feet. More than once, someone stumbled into a sinkhole, only to be yanked back by their quick-thinking comrades. The second day saw them scaling a ridge of razor-sharp obsidian, the black glass slicing into their hands and feet. Strange, bat-like creatures swooped from the sky, all fangs and leathery wings. Gunfire echoed off the rocks as they fought off the aerial assault. It was on the third day that they found the ruins. Cyclopean structures jutted from the earth, their surfaces pitted and scarred by the ravages of time. Strange glyphs were carved into the walls, a language none of them could decipher. They picked their way through the crumbling buildings, searching for any clue that might lead them to the artifact. It was the Etherian, her crystalline eyes attuned to energy patterns, who found the hidden doorway. It led down into the bowels of the earth. The air grew colder as they descended, their breath misting in the darkness. The walls were smooth here, almost organic in their curvature. As he reached for it, a bolt of energy sizzled past his ear. The Kurax had found them. Soldiers poured into the chamber, their weapons spitting death. Sean and his team dove for cover, returning fire. The battle was fierce, a maelstrom of ricocheting energy beams and the stench of burnt flesh. Sean saw his comrades fall, their blood staining the ancient stone. But still they fought on, desperate to secure the artifact. In a moment of desperation, Sean lunged for the orb. As his fingers closed around it, he felt a surge of power, unlike anything he had ever known. It was as if the collective will of 1,000 generations flowed through him, a psychic maelstrom that threatened to tear his mind asunder. With a roar of effort, he focused that power, channeling it into a blast that sent the Kurax flying, their bodies smashed against the walls, bones shattering like glass. In the ringing silence that followed, Sean staggered to his feet, the artifact clutched to his chest. He looked to Vox, saw the grim determination in the Evora's eyes. They had what they came for, but as they made their way back to the surface, back to their waiting ship, both knew that this was only the beginning. The real battle, the fight for the fate of the galaxy, was still to come. As Sean's fingers closed around the ancient artifact, he felt a surge of power unlike anything he had ever experienced. It was as if the hopes and dreams of 1,000 generations flowed through him, a psychic maelstrom that threatened to overwhelm his senses. But he held on, his will unbreakable. Vox nodded, his eyes glinting with a fierce determination. "We will rally the fleet. The Kurax will pay for what they've done." The journey back to the Allied fleet was a blur of urgent communications and hasty preparations. Sean and Vox worked tirelessly to coordinate the final assault, knowing that everything hinged on this moment. As the fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the Kuraks' homeworld, Sean felt a chill run down his spine. The Kuraks' armada stretched before them, a seemingly endless sea of ships bristling with weapons. "All ships engage at will," Sean ordered, his voice ringing out across the comms. "Let's show them what we're made of." The battle was joined, a maelstrom of fire and fury. Ships on both sides erupted in flames, torn apart by the relentless barrage of weapons fire. The screams of the dying filled the comms, a haunting chorus of agony and despair. But Sean and Vox fought on, leading a strike team to the planet's surface. They battled through the Kuraks' defenses, their weapons flashing in the dim light of the alien world. At last they stood before the Kuraks' leader, a towering figure of malevolence and cruelty. Sean and Vox exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. Together, they unleashed the full power of the artifact. A blinding light erupted from the ancient device, a psychic shockwave that rippled across the battlefield. The Kuraks' forces writhed in agony, their minds shattered by the overwhelming psychic assault. But Sean and Vox's allies were not spared. Many fell to their knees, blood pouring from their eyes and ears as their minds were ripped apart by the backlash. In the end, the Kuraks' leader lay broken at their feet, his once mighty empire reduced to ashes. But the cost had been high, too high. As Sean surveyed the aftermath of the battle, he felt a hollow emptiness in his chest. So many had died, so much had been lost. The alliances they had forged in the heat of battle were already beginning to fray, old rivalries and suspicions resurfacing in the wake of their bittersweet victory. Even Vox seemed distant, haunted by the sacrifices they had made. The easy camaraderie they had once shared was gone, replaced by a heavy silence. In the final moments, Sean stood alone on the bridge of his ship, gazing out at the stars. The war was over, but the scars it had left would never fade. The ancient human fleet, once a symbol of hope and unity, now felt like a burden, a reminder of the terrible price they had paid. "We won the war," Sean whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. But at what cost? Was it worth it in the end? The question hung in the air unanswered, as the weight of their choices bore down on them. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.